If you're a recruit or the parent of a recruit, you know that reaching out to college coaches is one of the most important steps in the process. But figuring out what to say to break the ice, that trips a lot of people up. And that's why I've partnered with Athlete Narrative. Athlete Narrative designed the Recruiter app to help athletes send clear, concise, and personalized emails to college coaches. Here's how it works. You start by filling out your radar page. Think of this as your digital resume. It's going to have your personal info, accolades, interests, and links to your game film. Then you use the Recruiter app to search for schools that match your interests. Once you find some schools, simply tap on a coach's name and the app will pull from your radar page to generate the perfect introductory email. All you have to do is personalize it with some quick info about why that specific school caught your attention. Then you hit send. The message goes straight from your inbox to theirs, and it's that simple. You do not need to pay thousands of dollars for an email service that might not even get results. For the same price as a month of Netflix, you can start sending emails that actually help you stand out. The recruiting process always rewards athletes who take initiative. Athlete Narrative helps you take that initiative faster. Download the app today using the link in this podcast description. Greetings, information superhighway. Welcome back to the Nail the Recruiting Process podcast. My name is Jared Zeidman. I'm thrilled to have you here. I'm ripping my my Buffalo Bandits gear today because they just clinched a spot in the NLL Championships where they will be playing for a three-peat. I know the city of Buffalo is excited. If you're unfamiliar with the Bandits or the NLL, it's worth checking out. And I hate saying this so unobjectively, but especially when the Bandits are at home, because you can expect sellouts of 19,000 plus in the KeyBank Arena to watch indoor lacrosse, and it's the coolest environment ever. Also on the radar, the Knicks are about to start the conference semifinals against the Celtics. That game is literally hours from tip as we speak, so we'll certainly be talking about that in next week's podcast. And by the time we hit next week, WNBA season is underway, so there's just a lot to look forward to in short order here. We are exiting the April recruiting blitz. You know, if you believe that April showers bring May flowers, April transfer portal chaos brings more May interviews for me with great people in the college ranks. So I'm very, very excited about the slate of interviews that are coming your way. I'm very, very excited about the interview that we have for you today. To set this up, reflecting on some podcasts in the tail end of last season and my podcast last week with John Sock, we've talked a lot about some of the potential risks of the transfer portal. And I am really trying to approach this podcast the way that I would honestly approach recruiting, which is I want to give you the most information I can give you so that you and your family can make the best decision for you and your family. So it's really important to me that you know, you don't just identify the transfer portal as like the pit stage from Mortal Kombat, where everybody just falls into a bed of spikes and that's how it ends, right? There are more options than just you transfer and you're doomed, or you transfer and you are a gajillionaire making NIL and collective money. There's a lot of space in between. And I've also found over the course of my coaching career that the moral of the story is oftentimes more absorbed when the story itself is really, really interesting. And boys and girls, I got an interesting story for you today. The main characters of our story, far from the only characters, but for the sake of this story, the main characters of the story are best friends and two-time teammates, Jane McCauley and Carly Whiteside. Jane and Carly started at the University of Vermont together. Jane transferred to Canisius, and I was so excited for the opportunity to coach her while I was at Canisius before I got sick, because I had known Jane for a long time and recruited her heavily at the Division III level through high school. In fact, the way I left it with her before I reached out to her when she was in the transfer portal to come to Canisius was, hey, if you ever decide you want to go D3, you just let me know, but you're probably going to go D1. And I watched her grow into a Division I caliber guard. That was so, so awesome. So Jane comes to Canisius. Carly and Jane are both playing reserve roles. And from what they tell me off air, they had great experiences everywhere they've been. They've loved the people they've met everywhere they've been, but they thought that there could be more for themselves from a basketball perspective. And I'm going to leave it at that because I think it's really important that you hear what they have to say in their own words. But where we can pick up the story is that Carly transfers to UMass Dartmouth and meets the other main character in our story, UMass Dartmouth head coach Matt Ducharme, who has won almost 75% of his games in his 10-plus year head coaching career at UMass Dartmouth and has built a tremendous family unit of alumni that is fiercely loyal to that program. Now, I really love the way Coach Matt coaches. I've gotten to know him over the years and really, really respect what he does. Jane finds out at the very, very tail end of her last year at Canisius that she has an extra year of eligibility. And while I will let her explain why, she decides to reunite with her best friend and play one final season at UMass Dartmouth. They win their conference. They have an outstanding season. They have 2 conference losses, and the game of basketball works itself out quite poetically. The semifinal and championship games of their conference tournament on their home court are against the 2 teams that beat them in the regular season. In that conference tournament, Carly Whiteside averages nearly a double-double. And in the championship game, Jane McCauley scores 33 points, including 10 made threes on 13 attempts. These 2 were far from the only contributors on this team. Again, there's more to the story than what I can share over the course of this podcast. This was a deep and loaded team, and you're going to hear them talk about that shortly. But these 2 played tremendous roles as transfers in UMass Dartmouth's success this year. Now, there's a lot of really important dynamics that I personally want to learn about through them. And I also think will be very important to anybody listening, especially anybody listening that's getting ready to make a decision about the recruiting process. Let's start from a coaching perspective. Here's Matt Ducharme, who has been extremely successful in his ability to build relationships with and develop young people over the course of their 4-year, and now with the transfer portal, 4+ year careers. He's a developer. What compels someone like Coach Matt to leverage the transfer portal? Well, you're going to hear him explain it, including a very insightful explanation as to when dabbling in the transfer portal really started for him. What do transfers bring that the typical D3 recruit doesn't bring? You're going to hear him talk about that. What's it like to have a lot of players that were featured in your team have to sacrifice and adjust for the collective good? You're going to hear him talk about that. From a player's perspective, why transfer? Especially, quote unquote, transferring down. Why do it? What's in it for you? What are you looking for? And now that you've done it, what would you want other people to really know, especially when it comes to some of the misconceptions about D3 basketball? You're going to hear that from Jane and Carly. What were the most important things to you that you picked up as you went through this D3 year? You're going to hear that from Jane and Carly. What's it like to be in the game like the championship game where you literally can't miss? You're going to hear that. There are so many valuable things, and the most valuable one of all comes at the end. A future Jane McCauley, a future Carly Whiteside, hell, even a future Matt Ducharme is out there. Knowing what you know now, having transferred down and experienced the success, what would your advice be to other people? And trust me when I say this, you're going to want to hear what all 3 of them have to say, because from a player perspective and from a coaching perspective, their emphasis on relationships and people being what drives collective basketball success is frankly, the messaging that young people need to hear more than anything else right now. I will say one other thing, just because I'm meticulous and I'm me, and I know that my podcasts tend to begin with a little bit of a back and forth with the guests. I had a little bit of problems with some audio patching. So when I say we're going to dive right in, you're going to hear it. We're literally diving right in to the first question. But I hope you enjoy it. I'm thrilled with how this came out. Ladies and gentlemen, UMass Dartmouth. Coach Matt, I want to start with you. I always like to think of basketball in, 4-year generations. You get them as first years, you graduate as seniors. Despite your immaculate head of hair, you are now well past your third generation of college students. And I have seen you firsthand, both as a peer and someone that has once competed against you. I have seen you consistently develop players first year to senior year. So I certainly don't think the transfer portal is an alternative to what you do, but I am curious as to, what caused you to want to lean into the transfer portal and acquire some of the athletes that you have now.
Well, the easy answer is I thought COVID, when that happened, it kind of changed the landscape of the way classes were made up, the extended year. We ended up having some really big graduating classes because of that people took their extra years. And with that happening, plus on top of just the just include how rapid the transfer portal grew and when they took away all the restrictions. And I thought it would be uh, silly not to dip my toes in the pool. Um, so I think that, I mean, I really got kind of fortunate to get the talent that I ended up getting out of the transfer portal. And not only talent, the character and the quality of person and people that we did get. So I think it can help you build rosters in a quicker fashion. I still love, love bringing in, a high school student and really having that relationship, developing a relationship over those 4 years and recently 5 and 6 and, how many years it takes. But I think it's something that I don't want to ever lose that, but I still think you need to be able to do both pretty well.
And I want to confirm something because you've said something that I've heard even from a lot of D1 coaches where the portal is going the most crazy right now. Most of us coaches that got into coaching did it because of how much they like those 4-year developmental relationships. So confirming, hearing you say like that's never something you want to abandon, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And that's really important to me because now if I flip it, I think that a lot of times people that are transferring are seeking out a developmental relationship like that, and maybe they don't always get it. So I want to start with you, Carly, because, in the intro, I highlighted the longtime friendship that you and Jane had, which to me makes this story so interesting. In this instance, if anyone isn't watching the video, there was a dynamite fist bump that just took place. But Carly, for you in this specific instance, you went first. You were the trailblazer. What was it specifically about either Coach Matt or UMass Dartmouth as a campus? What was it that made you, ready to take that jump from D1 to D3?
Well, when I entered the transfer portal, I really wasn't sure. I was kind of just doing it and seeing what would happen. Wasn't necessarily set on continuing playing somewhere, just seeing my options. So then when coach reached out to me, I was like, oh, this could be cool. This is like really close to where I grew up on Cape Cod. And my mom would be able to come see me play. Like I should check it out. So after I went on a visit, I really just felt like the people in the community and just like really the team, was what I was looking for in just like down to earth people who, aren't, aren't like superstars or feel like I don't know, just like real people who just love basketball and want to make relationships and stuff. So that was what sold me on the school. And it was a great decision. And then I, didn't even think I'd get 2 years. So feel very fortunate.
I want to ask you a quick follow-up because there's obviously so many different mindsets that you can have as a Division I athlete in the transfer portal, right, Carly? Did you even for a moment, envision like, by the time this adventure at the D3 level is done, I'm going to be an All-American? Was that something that like entered your mind as you were navigating this process?
No, I really actually like in summer league and stuff leading up to coming to UMass Dartmouth, I was just like, I hope I play. Like I really hope I hope I get some minutes. And then coach told me I was gonna start our first scrimmage and I was like so excited and he was like, yeah, like it's like I know what I'm doing. Like so yeah, no, I really didn't have expectations other than I knew I was gonna be around like great people and hopefully have some fun playing basketball again. So yes.
So Jane, I have a relationship with Coach Matt as a coach going on, a decade, my hairline versus his at least. And for you, I've known you actually almost just as long. I recruited you to the Division III level when I was still there. You were adamant at the time about wanting to go D1, and I will shout this kid out because I have for years. This kid's work ethic stands out against anyone's I've ever coached. So I want to ask you this, Jane. You see Carly's success and immediately you start talking to me about Division III. If I get an extra year of eligibility because of what happened with COVID and a redshirt year, I might want to do this. My question for you is a little bit different than Carly. Carly doesn't know what her success is going to look like, but all of a sudden you see her crushing it. Does that influence you in any way? Like, what work you put in, how hard you work at the Division I level. Is there a part of you that kind of goes, hey, this is my closest friend in basketball. I see her doing this. Maybe I can do that. Does that influence your decision in any way?
I think it was interesting because I didn't know up until the bus ride going to our MAC championships my 5th year that I was going to get my extra year of eligibility. So I was watching Carly play her whole 5th year just as a fan. Like I watched every game essentially like that I could, that I didn't have a game. And, it was really fun, like getting to see her success and, her find her joy in the game again. And, when I found out that I was going to get my extra year, that's sort of what I wanted, not even just the success on the court, but I just wanted to, love playing basketball again. And it was so hard to, turn down an opportunity to get to play together again. So yeah, yes, influenced my decision a little bit in the success way, but I think her just having fun playing and just the environment that she was in, and the environment that was created here sort of is what influenced my decision the most.
Yes. And now I mentioned briefly in the open, because even the two of your transfer portal journeys look a little bit different. If I remember correctly, you even entered the transfer portal as a do not contact. You're like, if I do this, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
Right. So I'll tell the people on air, once Jane entered the portal, I will never forget the conversation I had with Coach Matt, where I was like, so I think this is like a done deal already. And Coach Matt even being like, oh. So
yeah,
my question now. Oh, go ahead, Jane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I know. I should have let you finish the question, but
no, you're fine.
I transferred once prior to getting my 6th year, and I think that after the experience that I had, I didn't really want to play an extra year and go somewhere where I was gonna know nobody. I didn't really want to experience that again, only having 1 year left to play and 1 year left to go to school there. So I think that I was like, all right, if I get my 6th year, like this is what's happening. Like we're going to play together. Like, it's going to be a great experience. And I think I already had made up my mind prior. So yeah, for me, there was no reason. I didn't really want to hear from anyone else. I didn't really want to contact anyone else. Nothing was sort of going to influence that decision. So it may have sounded a little crazy in the moment, but I feel like I knew what I was doing.
I don't want to put you too much on the spot, Coach Matt, but in my career, I would imagine anything like that. Like when a recruit makes a decision like that, that's always been very humbling to me. I imagine this happens. What's your reaction? Is it just humbling to hear somebody be like, yeah, I saw my friend having a ton of fun playing basketball. It inspired me. Let's go. Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I think I was probably speechless on the phone with you when you kind of told me that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, like you said, I think the word is right. It's humbling. It's just like for a less wordy, it's pretty cool. Like you're happy that you've that your teams and your program has been able to develop a place that people want to go. And I mean, obviously Carly was a huge piece of that, but she was a huge piece of the having fun and the culture that we built too. So I think that is something that's like you said, humbling and awesome. And you hope you can, once in your coaching career you get something like that. And now I hope there's a second one out there somewhere, but I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I want to make sure our listeners understand this early. We're going to be talking about the other members of the UMass Dartmouth squad, and I almost struggle to call them the other members because you guys had an unbelievably balanced team. I just think this story of people that started as teammates in one place and ended as teammates and friends in another place is so unique and interesting. So listeners, stay tuned for that because we will be diving into that. Coach Matt, I want to stay with you because I also know that something you can get in the transfer portal is bigger than stats, right? It's culture. And you already talked about character. So I'd love to hear from you, maybe so that young people and their families can understand the value add of a potential Division I transfer. Would you say that there was something specific that either Carly or Jane or Amaris brought to your culture or to your locker room that you may not have otherwise had? And if so, could you quantify that?
It's tough because I've had some great players that have really done well. I think that I was thinking about that as you were saying, and I think maybe professionalism might be the word I'm thinking of. Just bringing a different way of approaching the game, the practice, the outside, the other stuff that we do. That maybe was something we didn't always have at the level we got it with, specifically these two, and like you said, Amaris, that brought in a different, just a different way of kind of doing things at times. I think that was probably it. And you mentioned Jane's work ethic and Carly's work ethic. They did extra stuff like it was, that was just what was expected of you. And yeah, we expected a D3, but I think it's a different expectation at a different level. And bringing that here was very helpful for the rest of the team too.
Awesome. So almost in a way, kind of lifting the floor is kind of what you're talking about, like that level of industriousness.
Yes, industriousness. There it is.
That's by the way, that's a John Wooden word. That's not a Jared Seidman word. I got the book like right next to me. That's how I sound cool, Matt. So I almost want to flip that question, Carly and Jane, for you two. What was something about the Division III level and Coach Matt and his staff that you had not experienced elsewhere that maybe surprised you?
I would just say like the total support that we receive at UMass Dartmouth. Like, I think when you think about maybe at a Division I school, you're going to have maybe more resources or like more people like checking in on you. But it's like, I personally felt the opposite. And I felt like a higher level of support from just not only coaches, but everyone that we worked with, like athletic trainers and, our strength and conditioning coach and like down to all the way like to the janitors and stuff. So I just feel like it's just the community and the support was not surprising to me, but just really like a special piece of it that I didn't necessarily know I would have coming in.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think like numbers wise at higher levels, you probably have like more people that are there to support you. But I think like the level of support that you do get and the individualized, support that you get at this level is just like sort of unmatched. And it might just be, this place specifically, and it might just be our experience specifically, but either way, it is really special. Like when we get sent off to away games, like our janitor every single time has a sign that says "Go UMass Dartmouth Women's Basketball." Like I just don't think that, down to that level of staff and support at every school, like you're getting that. So, yeah, just really special environment here.
That's awesome. And honestly, I really look forward to picking your brains more about that in a moment when we talk a little bit more about the recruiting nuts and bolts. I want to fast forward to a moment. One of the things about doing a podcast postseason is, the spoilers are readily available. We know that you guys won the Little East Conference, and we know that your conference championship game specifically was basically as good as it gets. What I want to talk to you about is, all three of you in some capacity or another have learned a little bit about sports psychology. You want to get into flow. You want to have that game where everything you execute fires on all cylinders. And, it just seems like everything you work for is working. In my experience, those games only happen 1 or 2 times a season, if that. For you guys, it literally happened in your conference championship game. So I have to ask all of you, like, what did it feel like to basically play the perfect game in what to that point was the most consequential game of your season? What was that like?
Okay, can
I'm
I
going to leave
start?
this to the player. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It was a big moment for us because our last, well, not our last 2, but 2 of our regular season games towards the end, we lost, and they were kind of games that we felt as though we really didn't like play like ourselves. And so come playoff time, we had the opportunity to face both of those teams again and saw Keene State in the semifinals, took care of business there. So that was like stop 1 on the revenge tour. And then we had Southern Maine, of course, in the championship. So that just, I think the added, like, it's championship game, yes, but we also knew that we were coming, like, that this team is coming into our gym now, and they're on a high from when they beat us the most recent game. So I think that extra level of, just wanting to prove that we can play our game of basketball against this team really like fueled us extra. And we're very happy with the results.
I think
That's it. I love that you just said very happy with the results. That is a very, I wouldn't disagree with you. I would be happy with that result too.
I think in terms of just like the game flow and like, everything just feeling like it was going right. At the beginning, I think after the first quarter, like we got some nerves out and we were like, okay, this is, we feel like now we're playing our basketball and like now we know like we can handle this team and like we're on our home court. And I think, after that first quarter, everyone just started to really just embrace the moment and enjoy it and have fun. Like at the end of the day, we did have 6 or 7 upperclassmen who, that was going to be our final game on that court. So I think, just having fun and embracing the moment really and just taking it all in just made it that much more special that was the game that happened in. But yeah, I can't really explain that feeling.
On a subject
Wow.
of unexplainable things. Oh, please go ahead. I'd love to hear from you,
Yeah,
Coach.
well, I'm actually probably going to say what you're going to say. I mean, to talk about modesty that just came out of Jane's mouth. Yeah, well, and they're also being modest. Like, I thought they really started the game like they wanted to win that game like pretty quickly. They started fast. This team special in knowing and when they're playing well, it's really fun to watch. And if you watch this, I think you saw that, but Jane having the championship game, and I'm sure you're going to take it from here, but that was being on or being in the flow. That was the zone that, not many people see, and at any level, including, NBA, WNBA, anywhere you don't see a 10 for 13 from 3 experience. I'm going to let you take it from there because I can see you biting and you want it.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, yeah, that's not a common thing. But I also think what's really interesting is the selflessness of your team in that moment to have so many veteran players, and we'll talk about this more in a moment. But one of the things to me that is so unique about your team this year is your whole team shot better than 38% from the floor. Like anyone at any time could have brought it. And the fact that in that game, the idea was, Jane's hit her first few, so now we're going to really deliberately get her the ball until she cools down. And then it just turned out that she never cooled down.
No.
That's, as a coach, I want to ask you this as a follow-up. Like, because we all have plans going into games like this, like how much does the plan change as you see the flow of the game? There's so many pen and kick looks. Carly's getting doubled. Like how much do your original plans change as you see the success unfolding?
With this team, it's different because of what you said, the way they share the ball, the way they trust each other. They're so smart on the floor that honestly made my job a lot easier for that. Carly knows when she's getting doubled, there's kickouts and there's people that can shoot the ball or pass out, pass back in. Like that kind of stuff's gonna happen. Yeah, we talk about it in timeouts, but the game flow, they are very good as a team as a whole of reading that and kind of figuring out what best way to go out of it. We play call, we do things to change things up, but the some of that stuff is just they're naturally gifted and the IQ and the awareness of the game and the flow it's going.
I want to build off this. We're talking to 2 transfers on your team. You also have multiple homegrown all-conference players. A lot of people on this team embraced a different role than what they had in a different year when they went to the NCAA tournament. So I want to make sure the listeners understand this. Like, this was a very, very unique year in terms of roster construction, adjusting to new roles on a team that's been successful in the past. So I want to start with you, Matt, and I want to just talk about what I think was the most impressive thing objectively about your team this year was a lack of ego. Nobody on the team plays more than 30 minutes a game. You have all of your starters averaging double figures. You go 5 deep on your bench, shooting above 38% from the floor. You are consistently playing 10. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that would be curious to know, how did you pull this off exactly?
You talked about sacrifice, and in one of our first team meetings, we actually, because I'm a homer and I love the Celtics, we took a page out of their book. They had a meeting at the beginning of the year. I had, like you said, we had a lot of the kids coming back from the year before. They went to the NCAAs, starters, 5th years, Jay Levine being one of them that was a starter. Was coming in. And I said, listen, we got 6 or 7 possibly that could start. I've all played really good minutes. I said, I need you to realize that we might not all start, but we're all going to have a role in it. And we need you to embrace it if we're going to have the success we want. I read like this whole, Joe Mazzulla thing talking about the starters and Horford and all that. And just, I don't think they took it as serious as I did at the beginning. But then realizing, for instance, one that's sitting right here, Jane, coming from D1 and coming off the bench for the whole season, are really embracing that role and shining in the role. And obviously she got good minutes off of that role and then she would finish a lot of games, but it's really realizing, whoa, I'm a D1 player. You're not starting me? That's crazy. There was none of that. And Jalen Levine started the year before the whole season and then took a seat coming off the bench and never complained. They had to come in, start a couple games when we had injuries. And did an amazing job. Like there's just that buy into we want to win the LEC. That is our goal. And then what do we got to do to get there? And if we're start thinking about it's the me, then we're gonna have problems. And it's the we're gonna have victories.
Building on that, because I think this is really important from a coaching perspective. Before I get Jane and Carly's thoughts, I can point to a lot of specific stats that are very cool, right? You're a near top 10 scoring offense in the nation. You're one of the most efficient field goal percentage teams in the country. You are literally 7th in the country in made threes this year. But behind the stats is kind of my hypothesis, which would be none of this happens unless everybody's bought in and the locker room is tight. Is that sort of the summary in your eyes?
Yeah. But like you said, I've had 3 generations of really teams, and I think I've been blessed with some really, really special teams. Back when I met you in Dallas, that was our first special team. This team was probably the most special as far as how fast they came together and really bought in to be the team that they wanted to be. Like I told you before, the goal is what they wanted so bad that they were willing to give up some of their personal things. And like I tell people all the time, if you give up some personal things for the end goal of the team, some of your personal stuff's going to be accomplished. You're going to have that personal goals that meet, but it's what your intentions are. I think that make it more special.
So what Coach just said is really interesting to me because he talks about a combination of a lot of new pieces gelling together, sacrifice to achieve a common goal, especially for 2 people that just made the journey that you did. From D1 to D3. I would love to know if the 2 of you have any advice to younger players based on the experience you went through this year?
Do you want me to go? Sure. I think sort of just, not even just based on what I went through this year, but, just throughout my entire college athletics journey, sort of just staying true to yourself and like, your principles and like what made you get to where you are, like, and don't settle. I feel like my work ethic is like something I have taken a lot of pride in my whole life, and I didn't really let it waver throughout my college career. And I think that, if I did, I would have, finished my 6 years of playing basketball with a lot of regret if I, didn't carry that through throughout my playing career. So I'd sort of just say, you know, don't lose what you did to get to where you are, no matter what level you're playing at, and sort of don't settle.
Love that. What about you, Carly?
I would say that just like thinking big picture, like it's great to work towards a goal, and like working towards earning a scholarship is something that is a great accomplishment. But thinking about like setting goals for yourself and being okay with like your path looking a little different is something that I've really embraced. And yeah, I think just like you're going to end up where you're supposed to be, and things just fall into place as there should. So that's what I would say.
It sounds to me, at least, like you guys don't have really any regrets about your journey. Is that fair?
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Let's dovetail right off that, because this is, after all, a podcast about the recruiting process. So this is an opportunity for, a longtime Division III coach and two high-level Division III players to talk about Division III basketball. I know that Coach Matt and I have been banging the drum for D3. I know, I don't want to love up on Coach Matt, but I know for a fact that there are D1 coaches out there at all levels that love Coach Matt. I know that. And I also, happen to coach at the Division I level myself after coaching at Division III for a while. You two have a similar experience. You were scholarship level players that had an amazing run at the Division III level. I guess my question to you, the players, would be, can you help me dispel this rumor that Division III ball like is bad and not well coached? Like, you just experienced it. What would you have to say about Division III basketball?
I think, can I go?
Yeah.
I just think like people don't realize how competitive it is, and just the level of talent that exists at the Division III level. And like I said, like when I came and played summer league with the team, I said to my mom afterwards, like, I want to be on this team, but I just hope I play. Like, I hope I can contribute something and get some minutes. So like, I think just you need to go and like watch a game and be there in person and realize that there's like really impressive athletes, and yeah, it's a highly competitive level.
Yeah, I'd say, the difference maybe on some teams there's a difference in skill level, but I think that a lot of teams do make up for it in just sheer athleticism. I think that, there are a lot of D3 teams that have, soccer and lacrosse players on their basketball team, which you can see when they're like running the break or like running full court press. But yeah, I would disagree with anyone who thinks that it's, not as competitive. I think especially in the New England area where we got to play, like there's a ton of really, really, really top tier teams that definitely could beat, Division II and Division I teams, I'd say. And, some of the rivalries that go on in our region specifically, I think make it just so much more exciting to watch and to be a part of.
So sticking with the two of you for a second, I was going to say I want to toss you a hypothetical, but the reality is this isn't a hypothetical. I deal with this with my clients and when I talk to people. To the person that's like, well, maybe I'll go D3 because, it's not as serious as D1 and, maybe the time investment won't be the same. What do you say to that person?
I think the time investment, I think it's just as serious. And like you would like from spending time around a team or people, players that you might be on a team if you're going on recruiting visits and stuff, like you can tell, at least I can only speak for our program, but it's taken very seriously and definitely still an equally like daunting time commitment. It's college athletics still. But I will say on the like more positive end, like it is still a large time commitment, but I do feel like there's more balance in your life outside of basketball. So like in terms of your sport, you're still spending like basically the same amount of time, maybe a few hours less like per week, but you're still like, you still have the same daily practice, daily, lift, conditioning, whatever you're doing. But those like outside of basketball things, I feel like you have a little more of your life to you. It feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I think like one of the only differences is, I guess, like at the D3 level, there's some majors that you probably can't pursue if you were to play at a higher level that you're allowed to at most Division 3 schools. But in terms of time commitment, like Carly said, like we obviously still practice every day. We lift twice a week in season, and preseason, we just enjoy playing basketball and we want to be ready for the season in terms of like chemistry wise and conditioning wise. And we play pickup and we condition preseason voluntarily. And I think that it's just something that obviously we're talking specific to our program, but I think Division 3, I don't think that the preseason commitment is much less than what we're describing as well. But I agree that obviously you do have a lot more balance just in your life in general.
And I do think like a big piece of it is also the summer session, not having a summer session at Division 3 level, but that really prepares you to come into school like in the fall, and like your teammates and like the coaches and everybody, like you're more eager for like pickup and lift and things like that, and you're like putting so much more energy towards that when you've had a summer to spend time with family and like recover and get yourself
I feel
situated.
like that was the biggest thing. Like you don't have a summer session in D3, and I think a lot of people would be like, well, then it's definitely not as serious. And my response was like, they're still competing and they still all want to play. So they're going to come back and probably compete. Is that a fair assessment of what you're saying? Like, I never thought that was as huge a thing as other people make it out to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, yeah, like you said, it can be a perception that like, because we don't have a summer session, it's not as competitive. But, I think it makes us, like Carly said, so much more excited to, come back and play together and compete just because we haven't really had as much competition over the summer. So I think it is a healthy amount of time off, and it's just enough to, get everyone like excited and, ready for the school year and ready to play together.
And we also send workout check-ins. So it's kind of like you're remotely staying motivated through your teammates by checking in with like a selfie of yourself working out, whether it's on Snapchat or GroupMe, but like kind of pushing each other while we're not actually physically together was helpful for us.
Before we turn back to Coach Matt for a couple of nuts and bolts recruiting questions, you said something just now that piqued my interest. I would love to quantify this just so that the average parent or average listener actually figured this out. During the spring and summer, when the coaches by rule in D3 could not work with you, how often per week would you say the two of you were getting up shots or in the gym working on something basketball related? Because I want listeners to understand what the work really looks like. What was that like for you two?
I mean, I'd say probably like 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah, like
pretty much.
One day maybe that we didn't work out, but I think probably 5 to 6 days a week for sure.
Okay, this is important. Go ahead, Coach Matt. You were about to add something. This is good.
Yeah, ask Jane what she did before the championship game.
Jane, what'd you do before the championship game?
I shot on the shooting machine. 7:30.
What time in the morning and how many shots?
7:30. I don't know how many shots I made, but
several hours.
Yep. And this is really, really important, right? This is because it kills me when people dismiss D3. People don't understand that this exists on a plane. There are D3 teams out there, and I'm telling you, this team was one of them that could take it to some of the teams at Division II in their region. Like the bottom, it's not like the bottom of D2 is better than the top of D3. And it's also not like the very bottom of D1 is better than the top of D2. Jane, you saw some of those scrimmages. I'll say that. There's, this is what I really want people to understand. We're doing a podcast with literally one of the best Division III three-point shooters in the country and a WBCA named by the coaches All-American honorable mention. So these are two people that are now telling you, these are two people now telling you, oh yeah, even though the coach wasn't there, we still were working at basketball like it was a part-time job at the Division III level. So anybody that's questioning the passion, the dedication, and the commitment that this really involves, let this be a lesson to you. And this is a good opportunity for me to segue to you, Coach Matt. I imagine as you're working the transfer portal, you might also have some people at higher levels that don't have this impression about what Division III actually is and what playing for UMass Dartmouth actually is. I imagine, and I'd love to hear it from you, what is the skepticism that like a potential transfer athlete has to work through to be a desirable recruit for you? Like what are the potential red flags and how do you filter that?
I was thinking about this. I was actually on a phone call earlier today, and it's for me, I like to build relationships in the recruitment process. Talk to the high school coach, the AAU coach, the family, get to meet all that. And sometimes with the transport, the situation it is, you don't get to build all those relationships and really get to learn about the whole person as much as I like to sometimes. So there is some of that like trepidation of, all right, well, anybody can, the highlight films of their life or the highlight films of who they are, they can be that for that short amount of time. Is that who they really are? Is that who they're really bringing into the program? So that is my biggest, area of like I said, trepidation of like, that's where I got to really dig down and try to get a quick synopsis of who the person is and making sure they're going to come in and be a positive to the program and not a negative to the program. And kind of that's probably the biggest part.
I want to now flip that because you've had this positive experience with transfers now. I mean, and
Yep.
we've established that it's not just with statistics. Jane, Carly, Amaris all brought it and helped elevate, the cultural component of your program. Is there now something that might have you look at a high school kid and whether it's immaturity or lack of preparedness, like, is there a chip in your brain that goes, I might be able to get this in the transfer portal and not have to worry about this? Like, how do you balance that?
So yes, on the flip side, what you're getting typically, because you got to talk to the college coach, is someone that has played at a level that is higher than high school, has hopefully been successful. You have some actual clips of them playing in college. So they have the work. You probably have the work ethic. They know what the extra workouts are all about. They know what a college program is all about. So yeah, that is definitely a positive.
Really, really interesting. I would love to hear this now from the three of you, and then we'll kind of close it with my final question after this. Knowing what you now know, I want to talk directly to the high school students because that information gap is real, right? You don't know what you don't know, and everyone has that experience when you show up on a college campus and you're practicing for the first time. What advice would you have to a specific high school kid that's going to go play D3? What would you say to them as they're getting ready to transition?
You guys want to start? You want me to?
I can start if you want me to.
Either of you.
Okay. I would say, don't overlook like the level of talent that you're going to play. Like, I would say, like, don't walk in and think that because of the success, you had in high school or wherever you were, that it's immediately going to carry over. I think no matter what level, D1, D2, D3, you need to just come in and be a sponge, learn from everyone around you, including the coaches, the upperclassmen, and, be willing to, create relationships with everyone. I think that one of the good things about Division III, like we talked about earlier, is you have a lot of time to form these relationships off the court with your teammates. So, being open to that, I think is super important as well as a freshman.
Very cool. Carly, you want to add to that?
I like what Jane said. I think coming into college at any level, I just feel like really taking advantage of your opportunities that you get, and no matter how those look, and really like trying to use each experience as a growing experience, and not really viewing anything as like failure or oh, I can't do this, but just like more of that positive mindset that wherever you end up is where you're supposed to be, and you're going to um, be okay. So I just think like taking advantage of the support and the help that's offered to you, and going out and seeking that is a big thing. And at the Division III level, like just thinking about how can I push my teammates and have relationships that are going to get me better, but also just improve the climate that I'm walking into, and the culture of wherever I end up. So,
Coach Matt, I imagine it's got to make you pretty proud to hear what you just heard from two players. Is there anything that you'd like to add to what they just shared?
Well, the things I like to hear is the culture, and you everywhere you go, you are part of the culture. So complaining about the culture, you are an addition or a subtraction to the culture. So be part of what you want to see, and then go where you want it. And I know you hear that part. Well, I hope people hear that. Like, go where you want it and go where you see yourself being successful, whatever success looks like for you. It might be, being on a really successful high level team that you don't get a lot of minutes on, and that's okay. It might be going somewhere you just want to play and you don't care about wins. Not my thing. I enjoy, I want a team that wants to win and willing to put the work in to win and willing to put the sacrifice in and what it might mean to get to the wins. And then really at the end of the year, celebrating as a team, having winning something, hopefully a championship. And I think finding what's important to you and what your must-haves are or where you're trying to land, and then being true to who you are and know what your why is. And why am I going to this place is because I'm supposed to, because people think I'm really good, or my family thinks I should, or my AAU coach thinks I should, or whatever it might be. Find it where you're finding your best fit and where you're going to be the happiest, because when you do leave the school, you want to look back and say that added to my life and added to who I am, and now I'm gonna have these relationships forever with these friends, with these teammates. I just think that's important, to not lose your self identity with looking what everybody else thinks you should do. Go where you want it and go where you can be your best fit.
Wow, the three of you just mic dropping one after the other. This is really valuable to me, specifically because I don't just think, I know that the next Carly Whiteside, the next Jane McCauley is out there right now, whether they're in the portal or not, whether whether they're trying to stick out an experience. When Matt says no, I love that. So I love you, Matt. I love you. Figuratively, the next Carly Whiteside or Jane McCauley is out there. And I don't mean in terms of what they bring to a culture or who they are as people. I mean more in terms of someone who might be looking for a new experience, someone who might be looking to make an impact differently or might be seeking out something different. I am of the opinion that over the last, 45 minutes or so, you guys have really drawn a map for what the next Carly or Jane could do, how to put trust in themselves and what type of environment to look for. But I always want to give you guys the floor. If there is anything that you haven't said to that future you that you want to say, is there anything else you guys want to add? Because I think this has been so valuable.
I would just say like lean into the uncomfortable like conversations, whether that's like with teammates or friends or family, coaches, like leaning into that, because that's really where you figure out who you want to be and what, like that can just, I don't know. I think making yourself uncomfortable is where we grow, and how, as a player and as a person, like that's really what the sport's about, and preparing you for life after the sport, which we are now in. So just thinking about taking advantage of every opportunity you get. Yeah.
Yeah, I think aside from all the on-court and basketball experiences and just going through the transfer process a couple times, I think at the end of the day, like really reflecting on, you know, my career, I think it's just so much bigger than basketball. And it's just about like the relationships you have and the experiences, like the things that you remember are not necessarily, like, obviously we're always going to remember like a championship win and like, you know, the major ones, but you know, the things that you remember are just like the times that you spend with your teammates and like the relationships that you form. And, you know, I've been at 3 different schools and I'm still in touch like super frequently with, you know, people that I met in 2019. So it's like, you never know who you're going to cross paths with, including this one, but you never going to know like who you're going to cross paths with and, you know, who's going to impact your life. And it's just, it's so much bigger than basketball at the end of the day. So basketball is what brings that all together, but it's the other stuff that's important.
So pick a place for the people and like the relationships that you feel, and for like having like-minded people. I feel like when I met Jane at Vermont, my mom instantly knew that like out of everybody that she met, she's like, oh, like you and Jane are so similar. Like I can tell that that's gonna be your close friend. And it's just like that feeling of who do you, and not that you need to pick people that like you're similar to, but just like that, like like-minded people who are gonna have like a similar goal and who are really gonna like push you to improve basketball wise, academically, life. Yeah.
Amazing. This has got to, you hear 2 players of yours say this, Coach Matt. I imagine this fills your cup immensely.
Cup is overflowing, Jared.
This was, I will tell you, this is actually my first time I've done a podcast with coaches, a coach and players at the same time. And I'm actually, honestly, now that I've done it, not looking forward to going back to doing one or the other, because I feel like it was so interesting to hear you guys not just talk about what your journey was like, but also like calling out one another's modesty, talking about one another's value to one another, bringing everything back to your team. I imagine this was an extremely fulfilling year for everybody involved in this interview. And I thank you so, so much for your time. And I look forward to catching up with you all very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for another episode of the Nail the Recruiting Process podcast. For more information about my Nail the Recruiting Process project or the work that I do with individuals or teams, please visit www.nailtherecruitingprocess.com. If you have ideas for podcast guests, questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, or you just want to reach out and say hi, please feel free to email me anytime at recruitinggear@gmail.com. That's the word recruiting, the word gear, all one word, at gmail.com. Finally, follow me on social media at Nail the Recruiting Process on Instagram. That's my home base for all news, updates, and content. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.